Do you constantly beat yourself up? Welcome to the club. Today's episode, we were talking about self-compassion. Is it important? And if it is, how on earth do we do it? This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm
That's a
Randy. That's
hard
Danny. What's
question.
going on, Danny?
What's up? You know, it's funny because it's one of those things where like no matter how much you know and I don't know if it's like a Western thing or whatever, but no matter how much you know that it's bad for you, no matter how much you know that like self-compassion is good, you still beat yourself up. Like it's so hard to get rid of those tendencies, to be
Hmm.
like, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, this isn't gonna work out, and you
Yep.
just make it, and it doesn't help anything. Like it doesn't
Hmm.
make things better. It doesn't make you more motivated. It doesn't make you get things done faster. It stresses you out and makes you worse at all that stuff.
Yeah. One of the things I was doing this week is like whenever I'm struggling, I just break out the Feeling Great app and like work through the problem using that app. It's
Nice.
an excellent app. And one of the techniques they have is a double standard technique. So I'll be listing the thoughts that I have that are causing me to suffer, and then it'll ask, well, you know, if you had a friend who was identical to you, same age, same everything, whatever, and most of the time I just imagine you,
Oh
but
yeah, that's what
it
I
would
do
be
too.
like,
Like you.
would you say this to them? And I'd be like, oh, I'd never say that, like
Yeah.
not in a million years. And they're like, what would you say to them instead? And I'd say it to that, and I'm like, well, if they're identical to you in every way, could you just say that to yourself? And I'm like, man, I treat myself like garbage.
Yeah. But we have this tendency, and it's like, why do we think it's okay? Because it's us, but we would never. And I think there's very few people that would say they would do that. They would use the same language with somebody else that you use with
Hmm.
yourself. I can't imagine that anybody would. But like, why do we think it's okay, right, to do that to ourselves, but not to somebody else? Why is it because it's us, because it's internal and not heard out loud? Is that what's stopping us? Like, and if that's the case,
Hmm.
maybe say it out loud to
I
yourself,
think
you know?
because this stuff, a lot of the stuff was said to us when we were young, and
Yeah.
like, and by people we had to trust, and so we took it as gospel. We took it as, well,
Internalize
they
it,
must,
yeah.
yeah, we that must be true. So there must be something wrong with me. So we just got in the habit of it because it was better to catch ourselves early than to get more of that from them.
That's true too. Yeah, I think also too, like I think a lot of it too, at least for myself too, is like expectations placed when you're young too, of like thinking like, you should be X, Y, or Z, and then, reality is different than that, obviously. And so then beating yourself for not meeting these made up goals you place on yourself or that others have. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
hard. And working through that stuff, I think a lot of us, well, I think everybody definitely suffers with that stuff, whether they know
Yeah.
it or not.
Yeah. So one of the best things that I've found was the double standard technique. When I'm beating
Yeah.
myself up, just like thinking if I had an identical twin or what would I say to you or a good friend or somebody like that. Because that's so helpful because yeah, it just helps me recognize where I'm not treating myself as a good
It helps
friend.
you reframe it too, to see like that like you're being way too hard on yourself, right? And I think that is like
Hmm.
one of the best methods. I think writing it
Yeah.
down too, like when you are feeling that way, like I've done this, I do this sometimes, not always, but like, I'll write down like what I'm thinking and then ask myself like why. And then sometimes that
Hmm.
usually shows me that it's just illogical, that I'm just being,
Yeah.
essentially I'm just being an ass to myself because I'm frustrated or stressed out or
Hmm.
something. And, these, I always liked what Nietzsche said, we're like, any of our unexpressed drives will express themselves internally. So it's like you're
Yeah.
not finding a way to express this stuff outwardly, so you're going to turn it in on yourself and it's going to be negative, right? And
Hmm.
instead of like expressing it outwardly somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I like what you were saying there with reframing it because like finding the good in it. So like a lot of the times these bad feelings that I have or thoughts or whatever, they actually say something very good about myself, that I have like high standards or I actually want very good things for myself, but it's just causing me to suffer because they're not like it's not happening that way now.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
learning to recognize that this painful feeling or emotion or situation is actually happening because I do care about myself.
Yeah, I like that in feeling good because they talked about that, right? Where like,
Hmm.
it's like if you're berating yourself for not being good enough, it's because you have high standards, right? You want yourself to be excellent or you want to be really good at this thing. You want to succeed. And that's not a
Hmm.
bad thing. And so then finding a way to do it where you're not beating the shit out of yourself too is
Yeah.
ideal, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I've been taking a lot more time recently to like high five myself, not actually literally high five myself, But after I do, I know, right? Yeah. But after I do something that was hard for me or something that was, I don't know, or even just something like taking some time for some self-care, like going for a walk in the park or something. I take some time afterwards and I'll be like, yeah, way to go.
Yeah. No, I've been trying to do that more too, which is like one, do hobbies more that I enjoy because that's it's just always a source of joy. So it's fun. But like
Hmm.
allowing yourself to do it so you don't feel like you're stressed too while you're doing it. But also too,
Hmm.
like looking back on what you've accomplished, recognizing what you've actually achieved. Because I think that's the other thing. When we beat ourselves up, we are really like I would argue probably 100% of the time that we do that, we're failing also to take into account what we have done. Because that's not
Hmm.
on the table. What we're focused on is what's not happening. But
Hmm.
we're not looking at what we did do. So I think like looking and being like when you feel that way, being like, well, what have I done recently? And looking at what how I like, especially if it's like, what have I accomplished in this area or whatever, what I'm working on. A lot of times you'll see like a lot, So it's
Hmm.
like there's no reason to really beat yourself up. You're just not exactly where you want to be yet. And I think
Yeah,
that's also important.
and that's an excellent transition to small delights and gratitude.
Yeah,
Because, dude, I noticed I took like a month off of doing small delights, and I noticed my mental health take like a significant dip. And it's
yeah,
so crazy because all you do is before you go to sleep, you just write down 5 good things that happened during a day.
yeah,
And in the beginning, it's super hard because you're not used to recognizing good things, and they can just be things that weren't bad, you know?
yeah.
But then you write them down. It's just like you get to relive those moments, which is great. And then you have this whole huge list of stuff
And it
that's
can be
good in your
like
life.
the grass smelled good when I mowed the lawn, or like the sun felt
Hmm.
good, whatever. It could be anything,
Yeah,
stupid, big,
butterfly
small.
flew by,
Yeah.
had a good
Dude,
cup of coffee, anything.
that is the craziest thing though. The more you do it, the more you start to realize like there's like an infinite number of good things that happen every day.
Hmm.
You know what it is though? Because it's just and this is, I think, always our problem, right? It's our awareness of things, where our attention is. And our attention tends to be grabbed by negative BS things
Hmm.
and distractions. But the more
Yep.
we cultivate paying attention to the right things, the more we see those things every day. And the
Hmm.
more you realize those things exist, right? Like that is not all bad. So yeah, I think
Hmm.
that's an awesome one. Like one of the most helpful things ever.
Yeah. Anything else?
I mean, I think just like too, like just being nice to someone, slowing down. It's funny, like that slow is fast, fast is slow thing. I think about that
Hmm.
all the time because whenever I'm trying to rush, like I can't tie my shoes. Like no,
I know,
you know
right?
what I mean? Like everything takes longer, and like that, I say that to myself a lot, and like it's true for everything. When you're freaking out about yourself, when you're berating yourself, like slow down, and like
Mm.
you're probably just, you need to reframe, rethink, and take a step
Dude.
back.
And it's
Yeah,
so easy to get spun up to like fast. I noticed that because, dude, I was listening to stuff at like double speed, and then all of a sudden on YouTube it has triple speed. So I
yeah,
was listening to stuff on triple speed, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, slow down. I don't need to learn anything more. Like,
Do
and
you know what's
so I just
interesting
went back to a
actually?
single speed like life. Yeah.
Total side note, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about people who are blind and interacting with media. And one
Hmm.
of the reasons they actually argued for those higher speeds because they're used to
Yeah.
interacting only by sound, so they can absorb a movie way faster
Yeah.
naturally than we can. So like they're two speeds normal, like almost like.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, that's interesting. That's why they have, it's one of the reasons why they offer it though. It's because of that.
Uh,
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
dude, but I noticed that that was just making my life speed up so much more. So I just
Well,
put
because
it
you're
all
right,
back to
right?
one
It's like
speed, and yeah.
everything becomes a rush. Everything becomes, how fast can I get it done? Rather than like, am I actually digesting this or enjoying it or
Hmm.
anything, right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I got to this point where it was more important to get it done. Like I made this list of a whole bunch of science fiction books that I wanted to read, and I was reading them and I wasn't enjoying the actual books because I just wanted to complete the list.
Yeah.
And I was like, something is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
happens to all of us, I think, and it sucks because it's like you ruin the things that you like by trying to rush through. And what's the rush? We have time.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there you have it, self-compassion. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. Until the next time, I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.